Hello everybody, my name is Alexis DeBlasio and I will be presenting the Tide Pod Challenge Crisis. So what is the Tide Pod Challenge? This challenge was first started by the YouTube channel College Humor, where one must ingest a Tide Pod and then record themselves doing it. The Tide Pod was labeled as the forbidden snack because of the way it looked. It looked like candy to people. There were hundreds of poison control calls in the year 2018 alone. These pods, because kids under the age of 5 were eating them, Tide actually went and wrapped them in a bitter tasting plastic, hoping to deter children from eating these pods. When ingested, these pods will actually burn the inside of your esophagus. They can burn the lining of your stomach. If you aspirate them, they can go in your lungs and you could be put on a ventilator. And lastly, death can occur, mostly in children under 5 and the elderly. So how was this crisis handled? Well, Procter & Gamble did an amazing job at handling this crisis. They pressed YouTube and Facebook to remove these videos. They issued PSAs, press statements, and social media posts about the dangers of eating Tide Pods. The CEO, David Taylor, actually came out and urged parents to prevent their teenagers from eating these packets in a blog post. They also posted a video of Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski, made him a spokesperson as to why eating Tide Pods is not the best decision. For me, I believe the crisis communication they used was corrective action image. They did not apologize because this wasn't their fault. Instead, they used social media as a guide to show people just how stupid this challenge is. There were a lot more videos posted against the Tide Pod Challenge than there were for the Tide Pod Challenge. And I think the great thing to take away here is that even though Procter & Gamble knew that this wasn't their fault, they still were trying to make sure people knew, like, they were taking this very seriously. They weren't just sitting back and watching. So how did the Tide Pod Challenge end? Well, of course, like anything with social media, new trends start and come and go, which led to the end of the Tide Pod Challenge. There was just something better that came up. This actually made us look at how dangerous social media can be. I mean, they does have some good things. For instance, a few years back, they used the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge to raise awareness against ALS, and it raised millions of dollars for this foundation, which is great. That's a great use of social media. When it comes to things like this, not so much. There was no legal action that was ever taken against Procter & Gamble. I mean, the only thing they could think of was a parent could come and say, well, they made these Tide Pods look too good and too much like a snack. But in reality, people have to understand that they have control over their own actions. So applying this to everyday workplace crisis management. I work in the medical field, so it was kind of hard for me to figure out how I could tie this in together. But honestly, in the medical field, you can't just sit around and wait for people to fix things. If something bad is happening, you have to stand up and take action right away. And just like Procter & Gamble, even though this wasn't their fault and this wasn't something they wanted to happen, they still came up and they took action in trying to stop this challenge. Also, make sure that the public understands what the whole story is. There are so many people out there that will over-exaggerate things. Like, there were actually only 86 cases of teens eating Tide Pods. You would have thought that there were hundreds and thousands, but those extra hundreds were actually just children and elderly who were eating Tide Pods because they didn't understand otherwise. They also responded quickly and honestly, which is another good thing. You don't want to just wait around again for someone else to take action. And that concludes the end of my slideshow. Thank you.